Do not confuse this with treatment or mental health advice or direction. Nothing on this podcast is made to supplement or supersede the relationship and direction of your mental health caretakers. Although David Kozlowski is a licensed marriage and family therapist, he is not functioning as a certified mental health professional in this environment. And same applies to any professional who may appear on the Light the Fight podcast. Welcome to the OG Therapy.
Welcome everybody to another episode of OG Therapy, and I am very honored to have the very first triple OG on the podcast, the OG himself, the godfather of Utah football, Mr. Coach Ron Mcbride. Coach, thanks for being on the podcast.
What's up, Kyle?
I feel so weird. I feel like he's looking at me like I'm this 18-year-old kid still going, did you go to class today, Cos? Probably not. We're not here to talk about my bad academic follow-through. We're here to highlight Coach today, but there might be some truth to that, Coach.
Well, Cos, you were a trippy kid. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. Well, right before we started talking, we talked about something that I knew. I lived through this being one of your players, and that is you had quite an interesting, I don't know if it was an affection, you felt bad for these types of kids, or you're just like, man, no one else is helping these kids. But the more messed up a kid was mentally and emotionally, you like went out of your way to help them. And that hasn't even stopped today. Like I still hear stories of you going out of your ways to just really lift up the kids that really don't believe in themselves. And I was definitely the case.
Yeah, well, exactly. So we kind of, we would identify players that were recruited in like three categories: the red category, yellow category, and then a green category. And so you knew that the red category kids had problems. So that's the kids you wanted to concentrate on. Yeah. So you kind of knew in recruiting when you took a chance on a kid, okay, that kid's going to need more attention than the green guy.
You can't just let that kid run off on his own.
Yeah, in other words, you got to get him from the red to the middle part, which is the yellow, orange, and then get him to the green. So hopefully, as you get him through his freshman year, sophomore year, and hopefully you push him to the next level. But you never give up on the red guy until you get him to where he can handle himself without somebody monitoring him every day and make sure he's doing what he's supposed to do. And just what you want to do is just keep hammering away at the same thing. And the thing about those guys, the red guys are guys that love football, and football is more important to them than education and other things. But in order for them to play football, they have to get an education. And the more they're around educated people, the better they become, because they're learning a different culture or a different lifestyle. And a lot of times, the people you work for, the administrators, they don't like you taking chances on kids like that. So they
don't want a lot of red kids.
No, they do not, because they don't want to deal with the problem. But I made a living for 50-some years off the red guys.
Because the red guys had talent.
The red guys had talent. They just didn't think like everybody else. And what you had to do is get them so they understand the importance of their education, the importance of their future, and the importance of them making something out of themselves. And that football can be a vehicle to get all those things, but you got to get them to think different than you kind of knew going in what you had, and then you made sure that that these kids are going to be successful. And I would always tell the guys that work for me, you take care of these guys, and I want to have a daily report on what these kids are doing. I want to know exactly what they're doing. Are they in class? Are they turning their stuff in? Are they doing what they're supposed to do? And so we monitored those kids closely to let them know that we cared about what they were doing. And then once they could get to that next level, then, we'd have another group coming in. But you want to make sure you can
turn them over from red and get them up into
get them
colors.
up, and what you want to do is and that's where your success is. It's like training football players. You get a football player that's maybe a C player, but the idea is to make him a B and an A player. So you get a player that's a pretty average guy coming in that's really athletic, but you have to train him to get him out of that, take him to be a C to a B to an A. So the idea is to elevate their circumstances and elevate the things they got to do. And you take whatever minuses they may have athletically, and you work on the things that they need to get done to be better and to think better, and then you try to teach down to their level. A lot of times go, this guy doesn't know this, guy doesn't know that. And I don't know how many times I've heard that from coaches. Oh, that guy doesn't know how to do this. He doesn't know how to do that. I said, look, dude, you're the teacher. He's the student. You have to teach to his level. And so you have to get down to, okay, how does he learn? Does he learn by seeing something? Does he learn by repeated? Does he learn by this? Or, a lot of times coaches, the guy's no good, just, throw him out and go by and go to the next guy. And that's typical, because everybody's job is based on wins and losses and the fact that you got no players getting in trouble, you got, all these circumstances. But the fun thing is to take guys that are athletically where you need them to be, and then take them from where they are to where they can be. And that's a secret to education. Secret to education is you take a D student and make him a C student, then you take the C student and make him a B student. And then, I can still remember Sione Mahi a long time ago. I can remember the first time he got a B on a test in college, and then running through the conflict with the paper. Hey, look at what I got. I said, let me see that paper. You sure that's your paper?
Oh my! And we were just talking about his brother Reno before the podcast started. I know Sione very well, and to be honest, I never knew he ever got to be on a paper. So that must be a true story. That if you're telling it,
I laugh so hard
because he was such a loving, happy kid. But so many of the young men, myself included, we were scared of school. Like school and homework was intimidating to us because when you're highlighted as such a good athlete your whole life, you feel comfortable taking risks in sports. But when someone says, hey, here's algebra, it's like, it was almost like you showed a cross to a vampire or something like that.
I always told the kids, hey, sit up in front of the class. Most of the players are sitting in the back.
Yep.
So you walk in there, sit in the back, and then you just, hey, get your butt up, move up there.
Oh, yeah.
Because and I said, well, why should I sit in front? Because that teacher knows you're there every day. If you got a problem, that teacher's going to help you. But if you're sitting in the back of the class, teacher doesn't know who you are.
And you're more likely going to talk in the back.
Yeah, exactly. So, and if you walk in late, that instructor's going to know you're late. And then when you need help, that instructor's not going to help you. But if you're sitting in front and you're trying, and then you ask for help, that instructor's going to help you because he knows that you care about what he's teaching or she is teaching.
What you just said, as far as you made a living off of the players in the red, the players that came in with all these struggles. So correct me if I'm wrong. You were hired as the head coach in, was it the 1990 season for Utah?
Something like that.
So 1990, because I came in 92.
Right.
I believe you were there 2 years already.
Right.
And I remember at that particular time, there was a huge shift from BYU to Utah.
Right.
So my older brother had played at BYU.
Right.
He was in the NFL at the time.
Right.
And I remember a friend of mine from my high school, he went, Daniel Pulsfer, he was the kicker.
Right.
I didn't really know much about the University of Utah, but he said, man, you got to come up here like Coach McBride. Like, I was like, whoa, what's going on up there? And so when you give me a scholarship and I came up here, of course, I didn't have another not today where there's a portal. You only go to one play for one college, right?
Right.
So when I came up here, I found out pretty quickly that what you just said about making a living with guys in the red was absolutely true. When I got here, it was chaos off the field and sometimes on the field. Right. I remember meeting multiple guys that they told me they had been in jail within the past year, like in jail, not like for overnight. Right. And they had all told me how you took a chance on them in junior college. Everyone, myself included. In fact, I don't know if you knew we called ourselves this, me and EG, Edwin Garrett, all those guys and that team. We all said we're like the Bad News Bears.
Yeah.
Remember the Bad News Bears, the TV show? Like you took the kids who were just like the ruffians, the kids that had behavioral problems, academic problems, or they blew out their knee, but they're supposed to go to Florida State or to UCLA. Nobody wanted us, and we were just like the island of the misfit toys in that way. And when you came up to us and you made us feel like you wanted us, I can tell you personally and from all my friends, it's a big deal for a young man to feel like someone believes in them when no one else was believing in them.
Absolutely. And if you believe in somebody and they know you're real, then you can make them do stuff that they don't think they're capable of doing. And
they wouldn't do on their own. They wouldn't have their own motivation to do that.
That's exactly right, because a lot of people lack confidence, especially they're scared of the classroom. They're scared of of all these real educated people being around them. And a lot of times universities, they don't want those kids. They soon shuffle them out, shuffle the deck the other way. And I can remember, and I still remember, almost 60 years ago would be my first job at Piedmont Hills High School. And I was a basic math teacher. And I could still remember the first, so I got a degree now, and I've got my, the thing that qualifies you to teach anything in the school. And I'm really excited about, being able to teach, but being able to coach too. Yeah. And so I can remember the first math meeting I went to, and they had all the math teachers and the head of the department, and they're shuffling these kids. This kid goes here, this kid goes here, and if any kid that was suspect, they said this guy goes to the coach. Yeah, and that's the way the meeting was. This guy goes algebra 1, this guy goes to geometry 2, this guy goes to coach. So it was and then they put all the kids down in one section of the school. So it was like, okay, all the supposedly good people were in the middle school, and then all of these other dudes and girls were down at this far end of the campus, down this little aisle.
Portable or something like that off the side.
Yeah, off the side, yeah.
Not even their own.
And then I'd always say, now you know what? And then I can remember the first class I had, and I said, now you know why you're here, right? I said, because all those people up there think you belong down here, because you don't learn the same as these people. Yeah. So what they want to do is keep all their problems away from the middle part of the school.
Yeah, they don't want to deal with you.
Yeah, but here's what we're going to do. I said, I'm going to get you, and I'm going to move you up, and we're going to have lunch up there, and we're going to sit in the middle of the quad when everybody else is having lunch, like a gang,
Yeah.
and so
strength in numbers.
Yeah, we walk together, we stay together, and let everybody know we're part of this campus too. So yeah, and so that was my first deal where people, segmenting kids, the red kids, all, hey, you guys go down here. That way you're not going to be bothering the real people, and.
Well, what you were just saying, it makes so much sense, because you did that in your own way with our program. In the state of Utah, you're like, hey, people think the University of Utah doesn't belong at the level at BYU.
Right.
And you gave us all the belief that, yeah, just because you guys weren't, the high recruited guys or the guys that other people didn't want, we're going to go walk on every field. And even if we lose that game, we're going to give it to them. We're going to hit them hard. They're going to know that we're serious. And there was something about that. And I remember Mafu.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Like you kind of created that same thing
Yeah.
on our team. You were trying to give us an identity to saying what you've been through is not who you are.
Right.
Like that's not who you are. It's just so you came from a bad socioeconomic background. So your family was poor. So you got bad grades in high school. That was all back then. You can change your reputation.
Well, yeah, you can change your circumstances.
Yeah.
So we were taking to begin with. We were taking props. Which guys that weren't qualified.
Was it prop? What was it? Prop 8?
Yeah, prop. I forget, prop 9 or whatever.
But it was the kids that couldn't pass the SATs, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we had, and the funny thing is, all those prop kids ended up graduating from college and have great jobs.
Chad Kaha was one.
Chad was one. Maaki was one. Sape was one. All those guys, and but thank God that we had good tutors, we had good academic help, and we could on a daily basis keep track of what they're doing, and at that time the university had no, they had no vision for what football could be.
That's true. They had no idea. If they would have known it was going to be, it had the potential to be what it is today.
Yeah,
they probably would have seen it a little bit differently back then.
Yeah. So I can remember when they hired me. If we don't get embarrassed by BYU and we can be, middle of the pack,
just competitive
and not be embarrassed, you could probably be here forever or whatever. I'm thinking, and the one thing, being here as an assistant coach twice, I could see this thing was, if you did it right, it would just blow up, because you could recruit the type of kids that you need to win, and you could recruit the type of kids that could excel, and you had good teachers on campus that cared about kids.
Beautiful environment, close to California.
Yeah,
just one flight away.
Yeah. So all you had to do was just build a belief. So we built it on returned missionaries. We built it on 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 Polynesian, 1/3 white, 1/3 African American, and that was kind of so we had a mixed locker room, and of different thoughts and different ideas.
And Whittingham, I think he gives credit to you that he does the same thing still.
Well, yeah,
and Jay, got that from you,
and Jay Hill did the same thing up at Weber, and Gary was doing the same thing when he had the success at Utah State. You just follow along, and you get a good locker room. And a lot of the players at Utah now are second-generation players.
Oh, yeah. You got sons.
Yeah. Their sons are, Filippo's son is starting left guard.
Ellis.
And then Luther's kid is a starting defensive end. The Miley kid is Henry Kafusi's son.
Oh, that's right.
The other guard is Mokafisi's kid, and on and on.
That's what BYU was known for doing, and then now Utah has that.
Yeah. So now, and then a couple of the guys that just committed to Utah were second-generation kids that were, one was at BYU, now he's transferred to Utah, and I think the tight end that just left BYU now is, so it's the thing was on a different foot now, and it used to be that a guy would rather walk on at BYU than take a scholarship from the University of Utah back in the 70s. I mean, it was like, well, if I don't have anything else, I'll go to Utah. But if BYU wants me to walk on, I'll walk on there rather than, because at that time, the church was really powerful with the kids, and they didn't consider Utah really as an alternative. And then once kids started having success at Utah, and especially the return missionaries, then you became more, and we really attacked the North Shore, and because BYU had dominated that area for years, and we took it away from them because they were really lazy, and we got really aggressive with our recruiting, and we took it away from them and kind of, you know.
Well, in my class, you started that as well too, because when I came in, because my brother went to BYU, then all of a sudden the Kafusis came over, and you hired Kafusi to be a coach here,
right?
And then you went over the North Shore. You got Nate Kia, you got the Cowties, you got a whole bunch of guys. When he says North Shore, for our listeners, if you don't know what that means, he's saying North Shore of Oahu, a hotbed for talent. Yeah. Oh, when you got Chris Fu'umatu Ma'afala, I mean, he could have went anywhere he wanted.
Yeah, he was recruited by everybody, but the biggest mistake. So I saw when he was, because Roy Ma'afala was.
That's my guy, Roy.
Yeah, so he was in the original class, right? And this was his younger brother. And I remember going over to the mom's house, and they lived in the projects over there. Yeah. And Roy said, hey, coach, you need to watch this film, on my brother, And so I watched the film. I said, man, this kid's really something. Right.
Yeah, special.
Yeah. And so a lot of people were recruiting him as a fullback, and I said, no, this guy's a tailback, And so I think the difference between us and the other people that were recruiting him, they were recruiting him more as a fullback, block, catch, do things. I said, no, dude, you're a tailback, And I said, you don't have to block anybody, you just have to run.
Yeah. He was a very unique, like Jerome Bettis type. Like, you got to give that kid the ball.
Yeah. So that was the whole thing. And then, and the fact that Roy had good success and I knew the mom was a key factor in that family. And so fortunately, and that's the 1 year with Ma'afala, Kautai Olevau, Nate Kia, the line.
Chad came right before that.
Yeah, Chad was
from Maui.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about Chad,
Chad Kaha'a is what he's referring to.
Kaha'a, yeah. So when I was on Maui at a conference, right?
Yeah.
And a guy named Maui Mike is a good friend of mine.
Maui Mike.
Maui Mike, yeah. So I said, who's the best athlete on the island? He said, well, there's Chad Kaha'a, but he's a non-qualifier.
Yeah.
So Maui Mike was real close to the family. So I said, well, set me up something and he lived with his grandparents.
Yeah.
So I went to talk to the grandparents and said, hey, look, this kid would be a prop at Utah. You'd have to support him for basically 1 year.
Yeah.
And I can get him through the year, and then we'll put him on scholarship. And so they agreed, and it was good for him. At that time, it was really good for him to get away from Hawaii.
Yeah. Be in a college environment, start going to classes.
Yeah. So he wasn't easy that first year, because he and Nate Kia always had something.
So he came in with me, Nate, Harold Lusk. Like we're all in the same class.
I just talked to Harold yesterday.
You had your hands full.
Yeah. So Harold now is the head of a big church in Monterey, and
Nate's a bishop too himself.
Yeah, and he's the head coach at Puno High School.
Head coach.
They just played for the state title against the Red Raiders.
Yeah.
And that's where. I'm trying to think of so one of our guys is the head coach there too.
Yeah.
So so they just played for the state championship. And
well, Coach, I want to jump in about that Chad story, because for all of our listeners, talk about Harold, Nate, Chad, myself. We were red guys. We were guys that hey, these kids have a lot of talent, but they may not be good for the legal department of the university, right? And so you did something that I didn't realize I learned this from you until recent years, because you mimic leadership that you really respond to well, and that is something very simple. And maybe you haven't put it in this way, but I've just labeled it this way. Life's about one thing only: relationships.
Right.
And if you put relationships first, you can get people, like you said, to do things that they didn't know they could do. They don't even, because when you're that young, you have no idea what your ceiling of potential is. You have no idea what you're capable of. And when you brought guys like us in and you put a relationship with us ahead of anything else, we started to believe in ourselves. I mean, I laughingly said my first quarter of school here, I got a .08. And I remember when you put all of us together, you were like making fun of everybody, like yelling at us, like not make fun. You were yelling as you're mad. You looked at me, you're like, Koz, I didn't even know you could get a .08. Like, and you're like, and I was just so embarrassed. But guess what? I got the second quarter, a 3.2.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you put in the work. You didn't give up on me. Most teams would have kicked me out.
Yeah.
And also on top of that, I got a letter from the president. I believe it was Smith back then. I was arrested 3 times that freshman year. And a couple of times you guys could help me out with, a couple of times you couldn't. And they told me one more issue and you're kicked out of the university. I was on such thin ice that first year, and you believed in me and it worked out. So when I talk about putting relationships first with families, with the parents and their kids, I always tell parents, and I know you've done this as a coach, so I want you to weigh on this in a minute, and then this would be a great segue to talk about your nonprofit, the McBride Foundation, is that when you give discipline to someone, you do have to be honest and clear with them that they made a mistake. However, you don't have to make it personal.
Yeah.
You don't have to belittle the person. And when I'm coaching and counseling parents, and they'll say things like, "What the hell's wrong with you? You're an idiot." I'm like, no. That's the wrong approach. You can tell your kid, "Hey, listen, I'm disappointed. You made a mistake. You screwed up." But then you need to follow it with something like this. "So go make up for the mistake now."
Right.
And then coach them and tell them what they need to do. Because just shaming kids, belittling kids that are already low self-esteem, that feel bad about academics, that are insecure, if you make it personal, like something's wrong with them, I don't think you could bring the best out of them. And you were proof to that. You did not make it personal. I never felt like you hated me. In fact, because you loved your players so much, when you did get mad at us, it was almost like a parent, like you felt like you're embarrassed, you disappointed that person that took time to care for you. So can you talk about that for a minute, please?
Yeah. So a couple of things that we did with guys back in the day, that had problems or did things that they weren't supposed to do. So Lou Lucido, who had Lucido Construction, so let's say a guy took something he wasn't supposed to take, okay?
From the job.
Yeah.
Which honestly happened to me one time.
Yeah. So I would say, okay, you got 2 choices. You can give up your scholarship and go home, or you can go work for Lou, and then when you've made enough money to pay back whatever you take plus, then you're going to present that money back to the people. So it's rather than put them in jail, but this was worse because they were sleeping in a barn.
Yep.
And then Lou would work them like 14 hours a day, and then when they got, then Lou would pay them at the end of their time, and then I would go get their check, and I said, okay, now we're going to go down and we're going to give this money to the person that you took something from, and now they did all this work for like whatever, it could be a couple of weeks, could be 3 weeks, and now all this money they earn. Now I said, here's what you took from these people. Now you've worked all these hours, so now you get back what you took.
Now, as a coach, the easier thing would have been to just get rid of them.
Yeah, because that's the easiest way to do it. And so, but then I'd kind of give the player a choice. Here's choice. You could leave and go home, or you could earn back some respect. And this is the way you earn it back. I said, it won't be fun. It's not supposed to be fun, but you got to know that what you took wasn't yours, and this is what you took from somebody that maybe didn't have as much as you have, or less, and now you've worked 56 hours, and it was hard work, but you got nothing. So so you make a choice now, and so in I'd say 80% of the instances it proved to be a positive thing, and then and just like you said before, I have not been 100% successful with problem kids, but I have been successful with like 80% of them.
Yeah.
And then there's a few that just you no matter what you did, you just couldn't get them to do the things you wanted them to do.
Yeah, it's something about the timing, something about where they're at in their life. They were too quick to give up on themselves, and you can only support them and give them the opportunity like that. Thank you for sharing that example, because I don't have to say this, but I'll admit the same thing. So I was fortunate enough to have the legal help of Lonnie DeLand.
Yeah, well, Lonnie was really good, you know, and
he got me out of a lot of trouble.
Yeah, well, Lonnie's even to this day, you know, about maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, had issue with, and it was an issue with one of my high school. One of my guys was coaching high school, and one of his kids got in trouble, and so then they called me and said, "Hey, could you find me a lawyer that would understand what this kid's problem is?" And then I took the kid and his parent and the coach that we met with Lonnie, and I said, "Okay, here's the problem, and obviously they have no money that they can afford a lawyer," and Lonnie was great, and we kind of were able to proceed forward and help the kid out and try to get him back on the right track.
Well, that's what I did. I had to work it off.
Yeah.
He hired me at his office because my parents, we couldn't afford it.
Right.
And so I had to actually work it off because I needed that legal help. And when I said he got me off, it wasn't like, he went to bat for me, and he believed that I wasn't a bad kid and that I was just in a bad situation. And we know now, and I don't think we don't have to get in a long discussion about this, but we know now that multiple concussions in a row cause a lot of problems that we didn't understand back then.
Well, I think that's all come to light, and that the fact that concussions are real.
Yeah.
And that it does take, the number of hits you get like that does take a toll.
Well, and just like the jersey right behind you, Junior Seau's jersey, he was the most extreme version of it. But the year that and I believe I talked about on the podcast a long time ago, but for new listeners, I was fortunate enough to have been honored with the I Love You Man award the very first year we did it, because we were in a restaurant and I broke down and told you something. I'd been embarrassed for years, but I had 3 concussions in 1 calendar year.
Right.
And I was really messed up. And in fact, Peatron and them, when they were doing all my CAT scans, I had a speech impediment and I couldn't, something was really wrong. And so they were like, Koz, we can't clear it. I had to go to 3 neurologists at the U, and they were all like, you can't play again. And at that particular time, we didn't know that having concussions, which is why you take a kid's helmet from them, it makes people emotionally and mentally unstable.
Right.
Me and my fiance broke up, and I had a very serious suicide attempt.
Oh, yeah.
And it was you that came down to the hospital at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was so ashamed because I knew my career was over. Right. I felt a failure because my older brothers were successful in the NFL. And I remember you standing above me just saying, I love you, man. Like, and you said the same thing, like, this doesn't matter. Like, that football, that's just part of your life. Like, this isn't who you are. You can be so much better than that. And that really turned me around, those words you said. But you've said that to so many players in the same type of way. And that 80%, some of them are pastors now. Would you ever thought Harold Lutz was going to be a pastor?
Yeah.
No. Nate Kia, a bishop. Look, Chad Kaha, he was a prop guy. And now he's a successful college coach. Like, so I want to get that part to you, Coach. Like, what does it do for you? Like, does it make you proud?
Oh, yeah. There's a good story about Junior, So I'm coaching at Arizona. We're playing SC, and we're running the option, right? And Glenn Parker, who was played in the league for about 10 years, and he had broke his leg the week before. So we're playing SC in Tucson, and Junior's playing defensive end, and he's running down our option stuff from the backside, right?
It didn't advantage being that fast and that big.
Yeah. So, and he destroyed my whole night. Right?
He destroyed a lot of people's nights.
Yeah, and so then afterwards, we always, we'd have, if people over to the house for dinner, you know. So here comes Junior, and it was either his dad or his uncle, and they knock on the door, right? I said, Junior, you just ruined my whole night. Now you want to come and have a free meal?
Oh man, but he was that type of guy. Like he wanted to hang out with you guys.
Yeah,
All the Paulies,
so,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, so he walked in and sat down. I said, man, I'm gonna get ripped tomorrow by the head coach for not making adjustments on the backside of the option stuff, and now you want a free meal.
But you know, Coach, that's you. Like
Yeah.
I bet you guys talked about, man, like, and he was such a lovable, kind, considerate guy.
Boy,
so respectful, man.
I'll tell you what a great player. I mean, that guy was. I mean, he was one of the best I've ever seen at the college level. There's no doubt. And of course, his professional career was, you know, you never knew. They'd line him up in a lot of different spots and just.
He was the San Diego Chargers for like 15 years.
Oh yeah.
If it wasn't for him, they didn't have anything on defense compared to him.
He didn't. He needed to stay retired the first time he retired, and then, of course, mentally he was, you know, he just too much.
That CTE, it's very, very real.
It is very real. That's exactly right.
So let's talk about your foundation now. So the Ron Mcbride Foundation, you could have done anything, but tell our listeners what you chose to focus on with your foundation. What you guys been doing?
So probably it's maybe been 10 years, maybe longer, and so it originally started with Lavelle and myself.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we were going to do is we're going to look for a couple of schools and hold a golf tournament and then build something at school. So we built a library at one school first, and then we built a book, bought all new books at another school, did some other things with so that's how it all started. And it started a very low-key type thing. And then in talking to different principals, it probably was 3 years later, we said, okay, let's talk to the principals and find out what they need. So we talked to principals in the Salt Lake City School District, the Granite School District, the Jordan School District, and up in the Ogden School District. Okay, what do you need? Well, we need something to occupy these kids from 3 to 6. And I said, because that's when all of our kids get in problems. And there's no such thing anymore as truancy. So if a kid doesn't show up to school, so what? You don't have somebody tracking him. You don't have somebody. Yeah. So we want to give these kids a reason to be at school and give them, and so with these after-school programs that we started, I think we have 14 schools now, and wow. we have like 4 different things that we do besides that, maybe 5. We just built a track out at Glendale Middle School, which was a 6-year project. So 6 years ago, okay, I met with the athletic director at Glendale. I said, okay, what do you need? He said, we need a track, I said, okay. I said, well, that'll be a project for us. And so then we started working on it little by little. And we didn't have, at that time, we weren't a financially secure, so little by little we were
raising the money, little pieces.
Yeah, little pieces. And then Kim Gardner gave us a huge boost. Awesome. And then James Yeppius from the Salt Lake City School District and obviously the Eccles Foundation, Gail Miller, all those people came and helped us get this track done. Awesome. And so it was amazing that we had this vision and we put it together and to see those kids the day we opened the track, and they had it was great. And then all the people that supported it, were there, and this community is great because there's a lot of people in this community that care about young people. Yeah. And they want to better their lives.
Family orientated, and if other kids don't have solid families, they want to help them out.
Yeah. And we were out at West Jordan Middle School what's today? Thursday was, I think Tuesday we were out there, Joanne Wells and myself, and just to see all those kids in the after school program, right? And to see the interaction with their teachers, which was really good, because they had like 8 or 9 different things that were going on over there. And I can remember going in and I'm watching the teacher's in the middle, and they got kids playing chess, right?
Yeah.
And the teacher is kind of just mimicking every move. No, you're like this, no. And the kids, and then when the checkmate, one of the other kids, hey, Harold, move it there. and then the kid said, checkmate, I got it. Yeah. And the kid that lost, he was so gracious. He said, nice job, to the other kid. And then they had a group of kids that were wanted to be screenwriters, or literature people. So they're all sitting there, about 10 of them, and they're sitting around and they're telling their story about what they're, describing different characters that they're putting up, And one student was particularly brilliant, and and I forget, he had a certain person. I said, well, describe what this person is.
Yeah.
And Joanne Wells, who's been a writer for years, so she asked the young lady questions, and then she would answer.
Help build the character.
Yeah, help build the character. And then they had another group that was they were doing Dungeons and Dragons, another gig, and
the teachers are involved with them.
Teachers.
That's really important, that they see a different side of the teacher.
Absolutely, because the relationship is different.
Yep.
When you're working, because now the kids will open up to that person that's an adult and talk to them about what their problems.
They're not just an authority figure; they're a person to them.
Yeah, they're a person to them, and so they and it helps that the principal is awesome, the vice principal is awesome, the events person is they all care about the kids.
Yeah.
And it all starts with the principal.
Yeah.
If the principal is really good,
absolutely,
and really caring, then it all starts. And then same thing with the principal at Glendale. She's awesome. They have a in the grammar school track program, they have 125 kids.
Wow.
And in the junior high, they have another 75 kids. So just in the track program, there's a couple of hundred kids.
Yeah.
Just in the track program alone, and then their rugby, their soccer, their dance programs, their tutoring programs, their just they offer so many different things for these kids, and then the kids can come in and computers at one school. Computers are huge, and.
Well, I think you said something about it really is the principal, because the principal is ultimately the head coach.
Yeah, the principal. If the principal is invested, then you're going to have a successful program.
I see that I told you that I've been teaching at Harriman High School the past few years.
Right.
Todd Kornberg, it's the same way. It's just like all the kids, they love the principal because he knows that he walks around, he knows him by name, just like what you did with us. That was one thing that always impressed me about you, is that even if like you'd made 100 people, I don't know how you did it, but you'd always remember their name and something about them. Something usually funny or comical that made that person not just feel like you remembered them, but it made them feel like there's a connection, because you never knew in the future you may need that person or they may need you. And that was something you always did. You invested in learning something about someone, remembering their name, and the principals that do the same thing, they have the ripple effect to their teachers, to their kids. And I didn't, when I was talking about the nonprofit recently, now that you're explaining it, it helps me understand even more. You're doing the same thing, but instead with college kids, you're going down to the beginning. You want to get them before.
Yeah, because
helping kids at 18, 19 is a lot harder.
The learned habits start probably when you're in the 4th grade, okay? And then you kind of start. So what we're trying to do is get down to that junior high grammar school kids and have a way to improve their life and make them a lot happier people, and more where they feel that people care about them, because a lot of young people, they're searching because they're either lost or they don't have single parent at home, and they're brought up by their grandmother.
They don't feel like they belong to something, like they're a part of something.
Yeah, in other words, and so the more you can feel that you're part of something, and it's not but it's more in a fun situation, and more like, okay, I can't wait till I get to play chess after school. I can't wait till I can go to a dance club after school. Or I can't wait to go to, the competitive deal in
screenwriting even.
Yeah. So it's all it's fun to see the kids involved in it, see their stories, listen to what they're doing, and so yeah, it makes kind of makes your life worthwhile. In other words, you feel like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm 83, I think now, something like that, and so, but now I'm able to give back to the community.
And you're able to do what you did with football and prove that it's a universal truth. You can do this with any type of kid, and obviously, you have daughters and stuff like that. So not everybody's going to play football.
Yeah,
like that's just a small percentage of the human population. Everybody needs to belong to something. They need to have an interest, and also too, in today's world, I commend you so much for doing this, because in today's world, it has become more about the individual.
Yeah.
So many people get lost in their devices. So many people, me. But at the end of the day, and a lot of the best research that I follow comes from the psychologist by the name of Matthew Lieberman, where he actually talks about it, saying living for yourself is much harder than if you're living to better the lives of other people.
Right.
If you're living like, what could I do to help others, then you learn actually more about yourself, because individual pursuits don't teach you who you really are.
Yeah. And the more, what we would like, my goal is for us, for my foundation, to have a bigger voice in education in the state of Utah, especially with the Prop 1 schools.
Yeah.
So that we have enough invested financially to where
you can help guide policies and stuff like that.
Yeah. In other words, you have more of a voice and where you can improve. And you don't do it overnight. You just don't walk in and say, oh, we're going to throw, $20,000 at you, and then you're going to listen to us. But you got to throw something at it to help the program. Then you've got to follow up. And you got to, like Joanne will go out and she gets a report back from all the schools of what they're doing. And then we'll go out and we'll check on what they're doing to make sure that everything is and the principals, we got, all our principals are really good people, I mean, they're caring, they love the kids. And
you know them, you've built those relationships with them over time.
And then you like Ken, who's on our board, is up in the Ogden School District, and he keeps us track of everything that goes on up there, because he's on our board, and he's really good. So we know kind of what's going on up there. They've done some really good things at Ben Lomond High School and at Ogden High School and at Highland Middle School, and all these different schools we have up there, and really good principals. And you can see a difference just of the attitudes of the kids in the school, and so it's really gratifying to see kids having joy on their face and they're happy with what they're doing, and so it's way good.
And I imagine, I'm just guessing, but I imagine for you, because when you just said you're 83 years old, listen to you talk right now, hearing you on the radio, you're sharp. In fact, you made me laugh right before we came on the podcast. We're in the parking lot, and I was walking him in here. He's on the phone. He brought me back to my 18-year-old self. He was on the phone with someone. He's like, yeah, we're having a workout. You're going to come? And all of a sudden you hear on the other end, he's like, coach is like, wait, it's like, you got a hurt elbow. He's like, well, you can still run, can't you? And the kid's like, well, I can hear the kid. And I started busting up laughing, because this is the guy that's like, hey, listen, I'm giving you an opportunity. Let's go. Like, come on. And you give that as an example. You're not sitting around saying, oh, here's what the state of Utah needs in education. You're going to the principals. You're saying, what do you need? And then as you help them with what they need, then they'll listen to all your wisdom and knowledge, hence your OG experience, saying this worked at a university with kids. And as a goal, as a coach, you couldn't have the goal to help them as they're younger because you had a job to help them from 18 to 23. That was your job. But now you get to go and start from the very beginning. It's really preventative in so much of a way that I can tell you, Coach, our society, as you know, you don't need me to tell you this, our society, unfortunately, has become very socially unhealthy.
Oh, well, yeah. So what has happened with social media and all the way kids have a way of being really mean to each other. Yeah. And especially if you're a little bit, a kid that doesn't have a lot of confidence in herself or himself, and all of a sudden kids are the bullying or whatever it is, they say, oh yeah, you look really stupid today. Your hair really looked bad. You look, and all of a sudden this kid goes home thinking, oh, nobody cares about me, instead of saying, hey, come on, sit at our table, and you have to have a sense of belonging and belonging to the right group, because you can get, because anytime you got a group that's kind of going off the wire, well, they're always looking for that person to bring into their group, because they say, okay, hey, so-and-so, we get so-and-so to come down with us. It's like having a bad locker room. Yeah. One guy is not doing well, and he becomes really negative because in what he's doing, he's looking for that next guy that will listen to what he has to say, and pretty soon you got 2 or 3 or 4 of those guys in your locker room, and then they destroy your football team.
Absolutely. That chemistry, and it doesn't even have to be a young kid, doesn't even have to be a part of a gang. It should be a bad group of friends. Yeah. People that demean them and talk down to them and never lift them up and encourage them to do, good things.
Yeah. So we have one young guy out at Juan Diego High School right now that came in from another school, and then there was one guy out there that maybe not having a lot of success, and so he's trying to bring this kid into his circle, right? Yeah. And I met with him a couple of weeks ago, and I said, hey, dude, these guys, you're having some success here, and you can continue to have success. And I know some people have said you're stupid or you're this or you're that, but I said I know that you're smart because I watched you work on your computer, and I know you can do this, and I know you can do this. But if you're hanging around with guys that aren't having success, they want to draw you into that. I said you need to get rid of the negative people, stay with the positive people, and that way it's going to bring you up. And this kid has a real chance because he's really, really pretty smart. I watched it, so he's all BSing these people like he's not smart, right? And I said, okay, do this on the computer, right? Boom, 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 boom. Look here.
You're like, you've been playing these people. You know how to do the work.
I said, so you're pretending like you're stupid, but you're not. I said, because you know how quick you answer these questions? And I said, so so this non-smart thing you're playing, it doesn't work because you made that computer light up like it was singing. Yeah. And so, hopefully he continues to, he's only I think he's a sophomore out there, and hopefully he,
But this is another great example of there's always kids coming up that have the potential, but they need to be coached up. Yeah, they need to be taught up. They need to be given the skills, and the self-confidence will follow.
Yeah, and you can't listen to people, well, that kid's no good, or that kid's, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that.
And you're not just doing that for the kids, you're also doing that for the coaches and teachers too, because you can see it's easy and I saw you with because a lot of times you'd have some of your friends as your coaches on the staff. And I'd overhear sometimes where you'd get mad at them for getting too mad at the kids and not coaching them up.
Right.
So you gotta continually be that example. Hey, listen, that kid may be making your job harder, but it's your job to bring the kid up.
Well,
Don't
yeah.
give up on him too quickly because it's a difficult job.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you hear a lot of times coaches say, the guy's no good, and doesn't belong here. He doesn't. Well, I said, well, who recruited him? Well, I did. Well, you recruited him. You're responsible.
Yeah.
So figure out what you got to do. And then a lot of guys just, they don't want to do, it's like administrator. They don't want to deal with that kid.
Yeah.
Because it's a problem for them.
Well,
Yeah.
Coach, I'm so glad that not only are you not one of those guys, but you've taught other people how to stay in the fight, how to stay, because it's one of the things you used to always say that I'll never forget. I don't know if you still use this statement, but you'd always say, "Are you looking for a way in, or are you looking for a way out?"
Exactly. Yeah.
And you asked me that one time, and I was like, I'd never heard that before, but I thought about it. Whether it was chores when I was growing up, whether it was homework, whether it was working out off season, I was always looking for a way out.
Yeah.
And I was never looking for a way in. And I just never heard it put like that before. And so those types of things that you plant the seed in someone's mind, and you remember that. And I was like, you know what? I didn't want to be that guy anymore. I was tired of being the kid that was talented but lazy.
Yeah.
The kid that was, oh, you're smart but you're stupid. Those are weird things
Yeah.
that people would say. They give you a compliment like, you're not that bad. I was like, wait, what? I'm not that bad. And so I'm so glad that you've been an example as a coach. Now you're taking what is learned as a coach. You're helping out in education. I work in education now too, and I know how much it's needed. And on this podcast, sometimes before I end up, just to wrap it up, I like to do a little word association.
Okay.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say two phrases, or in this case, names.
Okay.
And when you hear the person's name, I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
And then after you say the first thing that comes to your mind, just elaborate a little bit about your feelings about that person.
Okay. Okay.
So the first one, Lavelle Edwards.
Oh, a great friend, unique human being. He represented the values of BYU to the utmost. He was the greatest representative for the church across the United States. The guy, everybody knew who he was and respected what he was all about. Yeah.
This is just my opinion, but I'd heard a couple of interviews that he did when I was playing there in the 90s when you guys had some good battles. And I don't know if you'd agree with this, but I think he was one of the best promoters of Utah football.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you guys became friends, but he respected you because he knew what you did over at Utah. And then out of nowhere, when you guys were doing the commercials, right, with the bank commercials, he would always say, hey, people would say, oh, BYU's better than Utah. And he'd be like, hey, man, Utah, McBride. Like, he would always say positive, good things about it. And that really changed it. So it made it a rivalry that was like one of those healthy rivalries. But he always gave mad respect and credit to you and the university.
So there was a great story on Lavelle. So I'm in Tampa many years ago, and my son-in-law and I are playing golf and nobody plays golf in Florida in the summer, right?
Yeah.
So we're playing golf. So we're sitting in the bar afterwards having lunch, right? And I can remember this waitress saying, where are you guys from? Like, what are you doing here? And I said, well, we're from Utah, and at that time, my son-in-law, I forget where he was coaching at that time. And he said, oh yeah, you got the guy that's the coach that's the head of the church out there. She said, a guy named Liddell. No, I says Lavelle. And this girl thought that they were the Mormons were like those guys with the black hats. And
the Amish?
The Amish, yeah. Do you guys have black hats and you're riding these little carts around with your horses? I said, no, it's an LDS church. It's called the Mormon religion, And Lavelle's the head football coach at Brigham Young University. Well, isn't he? But he's head of the church, right? I said, no, he's not head of the church.
She thought he was the prophet.
He's not the prophet. But I said, he's close to him.
He's close to him.
He's close to the prophet, but he's not the prophet. I said, and then she said, well, I've learned a lot today.
And you told Lavelle that, right?
Yeah, so it was so funny. I said, yeah, she knew right away, yeah. And you're like the guys with the black hats and the horses and, no
electricity.
No electricity, no telephones. I said, no, we're.
They got electricity.
Yeah, we're a modern society.
That's funny. Liddell, the prophet.
The prophet, yeah.
I could see you going, hey, prophet, come here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I can remember I would go down there and speak every once in a while, and he would always say, okay, when you come down here, don't be funny. I said, you don't want me to say I just dropped a 6-pack of beer off on your front porch, right?
Yeah.
No.
Don't tell those jokes. Don't tell those jokes.
No jokes. No nothing. Just come down here, say a few words, and then get in your car and go home.
Well, I tell you what, Lavelle had his fair share of characters throughout his years too. My brother was one of them.
Oh yeah,
he had to deal with a lot of red guys too back in those days, especially in the '80s.
Sure did. He was, and you know what? He was great at handling those kids.
Oh, he was amazing. My brother loved. He was that very same thing. He just was like that father figure to everybody. Everybody loved Lavelle. Everybody did.
Yeah, exactly.
And he brought the best out of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I got one more for you.
Okay,
you ready? Vicky McBride.
Oh, well, yeah, we were married 62 years. And she, we moved 18 times.
18.
Yeah, 18 times, and she's really, to be a coach's wife is pretty hard because usually you have to kind of adapt to whatever situation comes up, and she's allowed me to kind of move from job to job and not complain about it, just kind of, and then she's probably had 15 different jobs, and plus got her degree at the same time and finished her education and has really adapted. And she was really the one that raised our kids, and she's the one that would say, okay, you're making this much money as a coach, I need to make this much money to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So she would have it all figured out as to, okay, here's how much money I need to make sure we can pay our bills, and then she would get a job accordingly to pick up the slack of what needed to be done. And so she's kind of the
ultimate partner, right?
Well, yeah, the ultimate partner, and she has a lot of ammunition on me that she's never because I was a little bit of a free spirit too.
You're a red? Were you a red guy too?
I'm definitely a red guy. So she kind of raised me too, right?
I bet.
So
well, everybody loves your wife.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Vicky.
Yeah.
And I know it's a cliche for guys to say, oh, I couldn't do without my wife, but I could you imagine if you never married her, never met her, would you imagine the success would have been anything close to what it was?
Well, she was right. We were married in college.
Yeah.
And she made sure that I got my degree. She made sure that and we had 3 kids by the time we got out of college.
Wow.
And she was, and she came from a real academic family. Education was really important to her dad and her mom, and so she was a big believer in education and pushing you to, you turn in this paper, you got this paper done, you got this paper done, you got.
So she was the one that taught you how to bring someone from the red into the green.
Yeah,
because she did with you.
Yeah, because she was dealing with me. Yeah, and she did a great job with our kids because the kids are all given back to society, and so yeah. And she's hardcore. She doesn't play.
She's not a pushover. She's old school, huh?
She's old. Boy, I'll tell you, and she's been through a lot. And when you really look back at it, it's pretty amazing because, just I can still remember when I got fired at Utah, and and my wife and two of my daughters were out shopping, right? And that was and I was at Fresno State, and they were playing in a bowl game, and they were in Fresno, and I took a job at the University of Kentucky over the phone, yeah. And they came back from shopping, And I said, well, I'm going to Kentucky on Monday. Doing what? I said, football coach. Are you crazy? And my wife said, I'm not going to Kentucky. And I said, well, I just took the job, and so on Monday, I was coaching football at Kentucky, right? And so then she had to figure out, okay, what's more, okay, because they owed me a couple of years on my contract at Utah, and we had enough money to where we could
little wiggle room.
Yeah, and so she figured, well, just we'll go back, everything will be cool. Then all of a sudden, she's going to Kentucky, which was, and then all our family was in the West,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a tough one. And then when we came back to Weber, then that was an interesting thing too, because I'd had and she was gone a lot when I was at Kentucky, because she would spend more time with the kids out west.
Yeah. She wanted to be with the grandkids and everything, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, so
she's like, you go do your thing. I'm going to hang out with the kids.
Yeah, but fortunately for me, she was at home in Kentucky when I had a heart attack, right?
Oh, that's
right. And so here I am. It's 3:00 in the morning, and I'm sweating like crazy, and going through this thing. And I said, I don't know what's the matter with me. And she says, oh, you're having a heart attack. I said, no, I'm not. No. She says, yes, you are. So she took me. She said, get in the car. She took me right to the UK hospital, and 15 minutes later, I was upstairs.
Wow.
But if she hadn't been there, there's no doubt I would have passed. Because the major artery was completely blocked.
I remember when that was on the news and I heard about that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that's how you got to the hospital, that she was actually there.
Yeah, she was there. She's like, hey, you're having a heart attack, dude. I said, no, I'm not. And then she gets on the phone with Dr. Belknap, who's our guy here, and he's taking her right to take him here, and then he's on the phone with the ER people at the Kentucky hospital, telling them what to do, right? And so it just happened so fast, and she said, no, you're having a heart attack, and we need to go right now. She said, well, call the ambulance, right? And she said, no, I'll take you. And then, boom. So yeah, she kept me alive for another day, right?
Not only did she give you the lives of your kids, she saved your life too.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, it's a trip.
That is a trip, Coach. Thank you so much. And some of these questions at the very end, selfishly to my listeners, because I know a lot of people, former players and fans, be listening to this. I never knew these things, Coach. I really wanted to know, like, what drove you, like why you were doing all these things, and what were you thinking, like the whole entire red to green thing. I never even heard of that before. Yeah. I didn't know about all these inner workings that were happening behind the scenes. But I'm telling you, Coach, you truly are, just one of those people that the choices you made throughout your life to put you in this position, have this type of influence. Mm-hmm. I know the city of Salt Lake, the state of Utah, all your former players, the school districts, the kids. I know everybody's very grateful for your heart and your compassion, and you're just not giving up on people. That's the thing I love about you the most. So thank you, Coach.
And I've made a lot of mistakes in my lifetime, and some ways survived them, but I had my good times, and hanging out with the boys and doing things that are a little bit crazy, but it it's just fortunate, And I've been really blessed. Football is really the game of football has really done so much for my life. Just the game and the players, more than anything else. And then having her and her picking up the slack, and not complaining too much and just saying, okay, here's what we got to do, and doing what she needed to do without, she would complain at times, but just not really complain.
She's old school. She's tough. She's not a whiny.
No,
what's wrong? Crying, complain. Since I've known her, she's always been get stuff done. You call her, she gets it done. She makes things happen.
Yeah, she knows what she's just like today. She says, okay, you need to leave right now. You need to make sure you're on time. She said she put it in the phone to make sure you're there. And then she was on the phone.
I texted her. She's like, Koz, I'll get him there on time. I'm like,
yeah. So she said, she kept saying, get out. You got to go. You're going to be late. I said, hey, it's only take 15 minutes to get there. No, but it'll take you longer, So, but, she made sure I was on time. And
that's so great.
And she's on the deal with Hank Mendoca, who's having the deal at the Rose Bowl, right? Yeah. And so she's saying, okay, all right, Hank, where's that? Where are you going to have it at? How much it needs to be? So
she's your handler.
She's not even going to the game, but she's handling everybody.
She'll put a GPS tracker on you. So, okay, take a right in this hallway.
Yeah. So everybody, so she's making sure, she makes sure that I got Kelly and Red to make sure I get there safe. They're okay. Then they're going to make sure
she got people on the ground.
She got people on the ground, yeah.
And then, with earpieces, and okay, McBride's coming up the stairs.
Yeah, and then I know that Hank said, you better make sure Vicky's coming to the game. I said, well, we'll see that.
She's in mission control, calling all the shots.
Yeah, she's calling all the shots. but hey, she's reluctant to get in a car and drive it. She said, I ain't.
Plus, Pasadena, coach, to get in and out of there, that's an all-day affair.
Yeah, but the university's been really, really good, and the odd thing, this is a great story. I don't know if we're still.
Go ahead. Heck yeah.
So I go up there a couple of days ago to kind of get the tickets and get all, get a sideline pass and all that stuff, so I can make sure that.
Yeah.
So I walk into there's a big meeting going on up with all the people that are running the university from the athletic side. So I walk in there. Here's Shamel Green, Keith Embry, Manny Hendricks,
Keith,
yeah, Jeff, and all these people that played at the university. They're all back, and then Mark, the AD, he was a GA for me at Arizona. He set up all the drills. He was a Dick Tomey guy. So I'm looking around. I'm thinking, oh my God, look at this! It almost made you want to cry to see these people. That all had, Shamel was a center fielder on the softball team, and Manny was a great basketball player there, played in the NFL for a long time.
And you had a big part of bringing him in back then. I remember when I was here when you brought Manny in, or they brought him in, yeah.
Yeah, and then they brought Shamel back, and then they brought Keith back, and just to see that, and then Jeff, who had been Kyle's kind of, did all the grunt work for Kyle.
Yeah.
Now he's up with the administrative part of it. So you got all these people sitting around, and they're running the university
athletics
athletic department,
and they're all great guys. Like when Keith got the job, like recently, I emailed him and said, "Man, they couldn't have picked a better guy." Keith was he was always in the study lab, taking it serious.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Ron Coleman, who was an instructor on campus at that time.
I remember Ron. I know his daughter too. Yeah.
Ron Coleman took Keith under his arm and really helped him to get his master's and helped him to get his doctor's degree and just kept pushing him to to go higher and higher.
Uh-huh.
And
Manny could be an AD, he could be an AD in lots of colleges, man.
yeah,
Manny's the best, man.
Manny's done.
He's a huge asset to the school.
Manny's done a great job, and the thing about Manny's a real loyal kid to. He's not a kid anymore. You know? He's 60 years old. I don't know why you call him. I think of all those people as kids. I mean, but they're all like
because they're your kids.
Yeah,
kids are you.
So I walk in there and Shamel, she's dressed really nice, and I'm thinking the only thing I remember about Shamel is she always had a glove in her back pocket and she wore shorts and some kind of a weird outfit, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at
she was a softball player.
Yeah, and she's all dressed up, right? I'm saying, holy shit, you look pretty good, Shamel.
Yeah, she's professional.
I said, where'd you get that good gigs? And she said, that's how you have to dress when you're a professional. I said, oh, I'm telling you.
You still see us as young 20-year-olds, 19-year-olds.
I said, that's a $500 outfit you got on or whatever. You didn't get it off the rack someplace. And she goes, Coach, look, I'm a professional now.
Well, and that's what when everyone ever runs into you, you always have the clever, funny things to say. That's why Lavelle said, "Don't say anything funny, Coach, but say it to me when no one else is around."
Yeah, so Embre's sitting around all these deals. Yeah. So Embre was on the Housewives thing, right?
Oh, he was? I didn't see that. Okay.
Oh, so they got him around this circle with a couple of the housewives and.
By the way, if Coach was your coach, anyone could get it. He could make fun of any of us at any time. Yeah. Go ahead, continue.
And so Sharif is there, and
sure.
and his wife and this other lady, and they had set Keith up with the other lady, right?
Yeah.
And
I got to watch that episode. I didn't know he was on an episode.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm watching this episode, and Keith got no game whatsoever. No.
Keith.
So
I love this.
Keep going. I've watched it, and I'm looking. And she's asking the young ladies asking Keith some questions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he's talking like an academic guy. And I tell you what, I am laughing so hard.
I said, that's must-see TV.
Yeah, you got to know. So then he's sitting there, this deal with all these professional people on.
Yeah.
I said, any of you people ever watched The Housewives of Salt Lake City when Keith was on there and he had a date that they set up for him? And I said, he got no game. And all these, he's like this. And then all these people going, these professional people, thinking, they wanted to laugh, but they're
but they're like looking at Keith like that. But Keith knew, I'd say, if Coach McBride is in the room, like every time we come in, like, you're tripping, cause like that's part of being a part of that club, though. Like when Coach McBride makes fun of you, it's an honor. It's an honor.
Yeah. So I sent an apology to Keith. Hey, Keith, I'm sorry, man. I couldn't pass it off.
Oh, he loved it. He loved it. He loved it. But Coach, let's do this. I just had a great idea. Let's end it like this. Would you, because you've coached so many thousands of guys throughout the years, and so many of them are going to share this podcast. I know I'm going to share with all of our guys, right? Could you just like parting words, like just what would you like to say to all your all your players, like from your heart, honestly?
Well, I would say, because
we know you. We always say what you've done for us.
Yeah, but I would say that I'm so proud of all you. You're not boys anymore. You're adults. I'm so proud of what you've become and how you've handled adversity in your lives and how you've been able to rebound from any problems you have, and then how much respect I have for what you've become and what you've done with your education, and your education has allowed you to have a job that you enjoy doing, and that you're able to give back to society, because the majority of those red guys are either policemen, FBI guys,
social workers,
and they're all giving back.
And aren't those the best guys to connect with kids?
Red guys? They know exactly how those kids are thinking.
Yeah,
because they were there.
One of those kids.
Yeah, man. And they can say I was messed up just like you, dude, when I was 15 or 14 years old, and it's so much fun, I mean, I mean, I got Henry Kafusi now is big in the church. You know, he's like
that's a great story.
He's like a bishop or something. And and I can remember one of Kautai's kids was going out on a mission, and I'm at the deal, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear this voice up in front, you know, and he's saying, well, you know, I think it's time to pass the bread. And I'm looking.
Like, I know that voice.
It's Henry. I said, oh, Henry, you know, but, you know, like
miracles can happen.
Yeah. And here's Henry. At one time, you're kind of worried about Henry.
Yeah.
But now, you know, so Henry, so the mom used to kind of evaluate the boys or where they are in the pecking order, you know. So Henry was kind of down towards the bottom. And so I said, so Henry worked from maybe number 8.
He's all the way up to the top.
He's all the way up to the top now. So he's like right behind Rich probably now. So it would be Henry, then Rich, then maybe you know, Steve, and then Jeff, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And so the other ones kind of worked their way down. He worked his way up. So he's number 2 in the pecking order now.
Well, Coach, you always played unfair. You'd always call kids moms because, you know, especially with certain families, like the Polynesian kids, you call their mom. I'll never forget. I showed up in your office one day, and I had a nose ring in. My hair was long. You're like, oh, yeah. And you picked up the phone. You looked at your Rolodex. You called my mom and heard my mom's voice. I was so scared. You told my mom I had a nose ring in, and she, oh my gosh, she was like, you better take that out. She was threatening me. I looked at you like, how dare you call my mom? That was cold-blooded.
Yeah.
But it worked. I took my nose ring out. So.
Yeah. So whatever you do is you call the person that's in control.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
My mom was in control for sure.
So whoever was in control, you call that person and say, okay, hey, your kid's screwing up over here. And so he's in some trouble. And he better straighten out, otherwise he's going to be back home with you. Yeah. And all of a sudden, that makes sense to who's ever in control. You ain't sending this kid home.
No. My mom literally said, if that's in your nose, you come home, I'm gonna rip it out of your face. And my mom wasn't playing, so.
and I would always tell those Polynesian kids when they're leaving the island, I said, I tell their parents, you know, okay, the kid's going to have some problems. He's going to want to come home at some point. Just tell them there's no return flight.
Did you? No way, because I called home asking to come home, and she's like, you can't come home.
That's right. I just, yeah.
Now it makes sense why I could never come home, because she was like, you can't come home.
I always tell parents, no return flight. The kids.
That was the best thing.
If the kid's not happy and he's struggling, so when he calls, I need to come home, you know, these guys aren't treating me right. I said, just tell them, hey, there's no return flight.
It makes all the sense in the world now why you would have our 2 days in Camp Carbon.
Yeah, well,
take us all the way away from the city, put in a place where guys knew if they quit, they couldn't get home. They were stuck.
I wanted the players to be miserable.
Yeah, and you did a very good job at that. Very good job at that.
I wanted it to be where people weren't making a good living. The mines were getting shut down.
Oh, yeah, there was tough people out there, man. Tough times.
And what I wanted our guys.
There's dirt on the football field we're practicing. That was not a nice field.
And I wanted it to be uncomfortable. I wanted the living to be uncomfortable. I wanted
it was hot.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be. You know, the more uncomfortable I could make it, the better it was.
It created us a bond. It created a bond. After Camp Carbon, you were a team.
Yeah, it forced you to come together because you had no choice. You know, and so.
But the funnest part, though, all the former players know, the very end when we do the skits.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The skits at the very end. Yeah. We can't say some of the things that happened, but I just want to give a shout out to Rob Hamilton.
Oh, right.
Thank you for some of your funny skits.
I tell you, Rob.
Or I eat Rocky Mountain oysters for the first time, fried frog legs for the first time there.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. So Rob was a trip, you know. So
another great guy.
And you know, so when we'd always do bed check, you know. And he was always naked when you did bed check, and he'd do it on purpose.
Never wore clothes, that guy.
Never wore clothes, that guy. So he'd always answer the door because I'd do bed check and do it around the room, and I'd tell him, you know, I wouldn't say it a polite way.
Yeah.
I'd say it more. I'd say, hey, look, Rob, when you answer the door, I don't care to see your naked body because first of all, you don't look that good.
Yeah, he wasn't the buffest guy in the world, that's for sure.
I said, if I was you, I'd cover that.
Yeah.
I'd cover that up because.
Oh man,
He'd always
started laughing. He was the comedian of the team, though. You always had one of those comedians every single group of guys. Yeah.
I said, Rob, first of all, you don't look that good.
you need to get in the gym, Rob.
Yeah, you got no game, bro. I said, so if I was you, I'd put all my clothes on rather than take my clothes off. But Rob he was a funny dude.
Oh, he was a funny dude. And you got all those players from the first time I started when I got there. Peter Tonga, he was the funny comedian out there doing the Scarface acts, and I'm sure everyone listening to this that hears this, if you're a part of his family as a player, I think I can speak for everyone. Coach, not only were we proud graduates, not only were we proud to play at the University of Utah, I think one thing that we're all even more proud of is to be part of your legacy.
Well,
thank you so much from all those players that you just created something that gave us, we all were part of something. We're all alumni, but we're all alumni from the University of Ron Mcbride.
And the great thing about it is all of these guys back in your day and the guys, they all created what's there today.
Yep.
So what happened is you created the base, you created the structure, and the fact that you could win there, and you guys built the stadium, you guys built the weight room, you guys built the stuff that's all there. So it's all these guys that built the stuff, and then what Urban did in his couple of years there, and then what Kyle's done since then, has just built on everything that's happened before. And
look at all your guys that are coaches there now. Sharif, Luther, all those guys.
Yeah, so the whole defensive staff were all former players. The Sharif coaches the corners, and Scally's the safety and the coordinator. Lewis and Luther now are the defensive line coach, and then Colton Swan's the linebacker coach who worked for me at Weber.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Andy Ludwig was a GA for me.
I remember Andy, of course.
Yeah, and then
and Whit.
Yeah, Whit was. Yeah, I hired Whit, and he worked for me for 7 years before, as I think he started off coaching the safeties and then D line, and then
I think '94 was his first year, right?
Yeah,
when he was with us.
Yeah,
because his dad was the
his
DC.
dad was a DC, and Fred was
man.
really,
I miss his dad. Man, I love Fred.
Fred was
a red guy for sure.
Well, Fred was a red. Yeah, hey, he was.
My brother Glenn has some crazy stories about Fred when he coached at BYU. Man,
I'll tell you what, Fred was unique.
He was a tough guy, man.
He was a very tough guy, and so he was. Yeah. So anybody that would coach Fred in college or in the pros, he was.
Don't catch him on the wrong day. You may catch a left hook if you catch him on the wrong day.
Oh my God! But he was really, particularly on the field. Great coach on the field.
Oh, he's amazing.
But not all, when you gave him too much free time, it probably wasn't.
Yep. After a couple games, I saw another side of him. After a couple big wins.
Yeah, but
love that guy.
But he was a really good, especially technically, gap control.
That's why he coached in the NFL for so long. He could deal with those personalities in the NFL too.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so he was definitely on that red and the
Reds.
And the red, yeah.
That's why we all liked him and respected him, man. Because when he dropped that clipboard and he said, "Let's go," he's like, "Okay, no, coach, don't get too mad." Like he was a serious man. He wasn't playing around. That's for sure.
No, but
serious guy.
But yeah. So
well, I tell you what, Coach. I know you got some things you're going to. I could do this for 4 or 5 more hours. This is the deepest dive I've ever had a chance to sit down and just pick your brain and just understand all these things and hear some stories I've never heard before. And I just thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, Coach. It really means a lot to me. I know all your former players and a lot of parents and a lot of coaches out there, educators are going to listen to this podcast as well. But thank you for sharing all your OG knowledge and wisdom. And without a doubt, Coach, you have really made your impact on this state and throughout the country, because there's your guys and girls throughout the country that you've worked with. So thank you, Coach.
Yeah, well, it's been great, and hopefully we can continue to make a difference in young people's lives and do positive things for the people in the state of Utah, and just keep moving forward.
Well, I think what I want to do is I'll have you, as I have some more of former players come on, which I will have, especially some former NFL players come on. I'll probably have you, once we get in our new studio, a bigger situation, I'll have you come on and be like my co-host with some of the other players. So I think that'd be really good, because you could get them to talk about some things that they probably wouldn't open up about. So
yeah,
you got some dirt on them that I could use if you share that dirt on the podcast.
Well, I got a little dirt on everybody.
I know you do,
and they got a little dirt on me too. So,
well, thank you very much, Coach.
Hey, thanks, your film guy.
I know my guy over here. He's a great guy, man.
Yeah, he is.
Great guy. Yeah.
Well,
thank you, Coach. Thank you to all of our listeners. As always, thank you for following Light the Fight podcast and for listening to our new episodes, OG Therapy. Share these episodes with anyone that you feel will benefit from the knowledge from Coach, and also just knowledge of how to work with youth. If you're in education, this is going to be a very valuable podcast. And all the former University of Utah football players or former players and people who have been influenced by Coach McBride, thank you for listening. Thank you for paying attention. And always, thank you for helping us to light the fight.